Mr. Chair, if I could respond briefly.
Yes, that would be fine.
Numbers are interesting the way you position them, if not spin them. And we've heard some very frightening numbers, 60% plus. That's over a many-year period. If you look at where we are in time and in law, January 1st, 2016, current law says $10 an hour. Our bill is proposing 11. That's a 10% increase. Our bill then, and then without this bill, we're at $10 an hour. Far, far below the federal poverty line, with no prospects to go anywhere. And with all of this opposition coming to tell you any increase, because historically they have always said any increase, the sky will fall. Our bill then, from January 1st of 16, July 1st of 17, will raise it another 18%. So yes, from our first increase to the second increase, it is 28%. But I want to show you a letter from over 600 economists in support of a federal $10.10 minimum wage. 600 economists all signed on to a letter addressed to the President, to the Speaker of the House, Majority Leader of the Senate, and subsequent leadership of the Congress, including 7 Nobel Prize laureates and economists representing institutions such as Stanford, Harvard, MIT, University of California, Cornell, Tulane, University of Texas, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Michigan, Northwestern, the top institutions of learning in our country, their economists supporting an increase from $7.25 to $10.10. That's a 40% increase in one jump, far more than what we're proposing here. So, again, if the opposition can't support this bill, and they clearly can't and won't, I need to hear from them, and I think it is on them to show us how we're going to stop paying sub-poverty wages in California. Short of that, they support it. It's completely fine for this gentleman to have to work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to make ends meet. This is not a middle-class existence, and he'll never get out of it, ever. And that's millions. Over 1 million Californians are in that situation. So what's the response? Come back with a counter-offer, something. Don't turn your back, walk away, and say, status quo is just fine. Just fine. That a third of California's children, more than a third, are living in poverty. So, you can spin numbers any way you want. This is a reasonable proposal. And again, what some of the opposition unfortunately didn't make mention, and especially I'm sensitive to the smaller business owners, and I am a small business owner. I've been one for the past 36 years. They don't account in their arguments for the savings they will experience, significant savings, in lower turnover, lower costs of rehiring, higher productivity. That's all a benefit to the employer. And the fact that there'll be more spending, as Senator Leyva has repeatedly said, in our communities. These people are going to spend every penny that they make because they have to pay the rent, keep food on their table. And yes, as the professor has suggested, prices will increase very modestly. And you can come out even, and guess what? You've got better, more stable work staff, and they're not going to live in poverty. Isn't that a great thing?
Thank you very much. There was a question by Assemblymember Chu and then Assemblymember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just wanted to state I came from a very high cost of living area, and when I was a San Jose City Council member, I was very fortunate to be able to raise the minimum wage to $10 about 3 years ago, and in the last 3 years, I have seen a lot of economic benefit out of that minimum wage increase. So out front, I will support the bill, I'd like to make a motion. But I do heard the concern from the developmental disability community as the chair of Human Services. I know it is real, and they're really a dire need to restore some of the money that they haven't been able to see for the many years. So, and I have talked to our committee chair, Assemblymember Hernandez. I'm in the process of introducing the bill. I put some bill language to the Ledge Council and hopefully be back later today or tomorrow, and hopefully that this budget issue will be able to address in the special session that coming up shortly. So I'm looking for your support in the Senate side, and maybe we can work together. I know you were thinking about pushing forward a bill to the special session, so I'm looking forward to working with you in the next few months. With that, I'd like to make a motion to move the bill.
Second.
The bill has been moved and seconded by both Mr. McCarty and Mr. Thurman. So I know that Mr. Patterson has a question, and then Mr. McCarty, and then Mr. Lowe.
Given the quick and repetitive motions and seconds, I may just choose not to engage. And I know you all will say amen. I'm going to do this as friendly and as respectful as I can, and I'm really not looking for even responses, just a little different framework here. And then a couple of questions with respect to the school districts in my area and ARC in my area who are expressing similar concerns. And you cited it in your opening statement, there are conflicting and competing academic research and conclusions on this. The 600 signatures, there were in fact 500 signatures in opposition to it from Nobel laureate economists as well. So I guess if we want to say you got 100 more, but there is not unanimity on, and again from MIT and Stanford and other significant places. It is, and so I think the legitimate question that you asked was, okay, so what can we do? This is maybe not the place for that discussion, but there is another reality in California, and that reality in California is that we have, over a period of time, created with taxes, costs, regulations, et cetera, some of the highest cost of living in the United States. So I think there has to be a fresh, clear look at our business climate, our competitive nature, particularly in 3/4 of the state of California that are not touched by oceans or bays. So I think there is a whole nother area where we should not be satisfied with the kind of unemployment rate that we have. We need to be recognizing we should not be proud of from a 7.5 to 6.5. And I recognize that is downward, and we all want downward. But I think we miss the real significance of the U6 unemployment rate in the state of California. When we take a look at those who've given up, when we take a look at those who have, it is a significant, probably double. I mean, it's alarming when you look at U6. So there's something going on in the state of California that even an increase in the minimum wage isn't going to help. There are, I think, different ways to go about this. I also just need to say that small business, as has been mentioned here, 90+% of employment. There is a real significant undercurrent of real desperation in small business across the state of California. we come from areas where we listen to them and hear from them all the time. And it is a frustration that is really deep and wide. And it is, that does have to do with every time we turn around, the state of California is doing something else to us again. It's like we're getting cut with 1,000 knife cuts. We're not asking for you to, just stop the knife cuts, just time out on it. I serve as vice chair of Utility and Commerce Committee. We have significant spikes driven by policy that has, in fact, created very expensive electricity comparatively across the. And I'm not here to engage it, but there is another pathway where we can address the whole question about whether or not people can have wages that are much, much beyond minimum wage. And the whether it's 40% or 60% or whatever this cost shock is, it is a real cost shock that is very, very tough. And I came through 30 years of broadcasting. I'm not the face or the voice of small business in California. Small business in California has changed with the demographics of the state of California. What this is going to hurt significantly, I think, are going to be minority-owned small businesses all up and down and across the state, including those. There is a common thread that I hear from my district and up and down the state, from Hispanic chambers of commerce and from others. We heard it from the Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. These are small minority-owned businesses. We say we want to care about the people that we say we care about. If the minimum wage was the answer, we'd be out of this spiral. With respect to just a couple of questions, the indexing perplexes me just a little bit. So if we had deflation, if we had declines in CPI and declines in the cost of living, would the minimum wage follow that decline?
I'll ask the professor, when's the last time we saw a decline in CPI?
Deflation is extremely, extremely rare. Most of the laws have a cap at 0. To my knowledge, they've never been put in effect.
As a matter of fact, during the Great Recession, I think what we saw was just nothing, no inflation. I think there was a year of 0, if something very de minimis below.
Areas it's slightly below 0 for one.
Yeah, right. But overall, statewide, that wasn't the case.
This is like it does. It's such a historical anomaly, but again, most of the laws cap it at 0.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Pardon me? I think the bill has explicit language that it won't allow it. It is, but
That's probably the least of your concern.
the point I'm trying to get to is it will always go up. Indexing it, I mean, it's not. I mean, if you're going to, the indexing, I do think is a part of the concern that you're seeing, the sort of the autopilot. So it leads to the next question. Given the fact that this bill is going to pass through this committee, my guess is it's going to pass, and it is indexed. Will this be the end of efforts to increase the minimum wage?
You will not see one from me.
I have a few more years, so I can't guarantee that.
Again, I
think that was a joke.
Well, I fully expect to see more. I fully expect to see more bills after this is over that will go from 13 to 15 and on.
What I think, Assemblyman, is our strongest argument with the indexing will be taken off the table. It will be gone. No one could argue any longer that we allow for the legal payment of a sub-poverty wage in California. So once we get to that 13 and then adjust it for CPI, we'll always just ride that low wave of federal poverty.
Nobody wants to pay sub-living wage. Nobody.
Not even living, it's poverty.
But there really are competitive factors in California. I have done business in California for 30 years. I owned radio stations in markets in California. I can tell you that our entire experience, and it's getting worse even now, when we talk to the advertising community in our marketplaces, there is a serious concern over their cash flows, and so we really are seeing trickling effects into other parts of economies. And I'm not just saying it's not just the minimum wage; it is the cumulative effect of policies that have created a cost of living that is so very, very high. In most places in the state of California, the cost of living in the state is higher, frankly, than most Californians can afford to pay. Just one other, and I do think there's a different pathway. And I think it's a pathway of rising tides floating all boats, people getting better education, better jobs, an economy that explodes rather than just sort of trickles upward. Those are the kinds of things I think we could probably be working on.
Assembly member, before you get to that next point, I was kidding about the minimum wage, and I would hope that this would be the last time we ever had to address minimum wage. And we are small business owners, my husband and I, so we understand the challenges. And what I would say is there are other paths, and I think we're working on those. One of the first bills that I introduced as a new member was SB 398, which with GAP, Greenhouse Assistance Program, specifically for small businesses so that they can access cap and trade monies, so that will help reduce their costs. So there's a lot of things we can do. This isn't in isolation. It doesn't stand alone. Neither Senator Leno and I we're very cognizant of small businesses, and we want to make sure they thrive. So I think we're on a dual track. We're helping them to save money because we know that we're asking them to pay more money. So there are other things that we can do, and I would hope this is the last time that we raise the minimum wage, because there actually are good jobs out there that are livable wage jobs.
Why not carve out of the bill, with the uncertainty of the funding for ARCs and the funding for schools, things of that nature? Why not just carve those out? If it is an uncertainty that these extraordinary sessions will produce anything, and I don't know if you've considered carving them out and perhaps reinstating them after their funding.
I don't think, and Ms. Fearing can speak on behalf of the Association of Nonprofits, they don't want to pay poverty wages, sub-poverty wages. They just want to get paid what they should be from the state. And the timing is such that we will have a determination from the special sessions prior to this bill, should it succeed to get to the governor's desk. So we will know. And we will know.
And I appreciate the exchange. I really do. And I think we all would like to arrive at the same place, and that is with a robust California that is just blowing the doors off. And people, when people, it's not about the minimum wage. It's about really an economy that is just robust and exploding. And I hope we get there.
I would suggest that passing Brazil as now the 7th largest economy in the world means we are moving.
I understand that. We used to be the 6th. We used to be the 6th. Yeah. We ended up the 9th.
Before George Bush was president, we were the 6th.
I mean, there is a well,
all right, we're gonna.
I don't think.
We're gonna put a cap on this one.
Again, we'll put a cap. All I can tell you is, members, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to face a storm of complaint and opposition, and they won't look like me. They won't be me. They will be the people we say we care about. And there is a undercurrent of fear inside small business up and down the state, and it does have to do with the piling on of regulatory and taxation and all these other kinds of things that get to a point where you are in a non-competing circumstance. But again, then I'll close.
Yeah, we can close.
And I see itching, and I thank you for the opportunity. With respect to ARC in Fresno and our school districts, I'm not going to read you the letter, and I mean, there is bottom line horror in all of this, because they have no way of passing that cost to customers. And it is very extremely disconcerting to them. I mean, it is a fear level that is real.
I'll
And
address that in my close.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Anyway,
Patterson.
thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Assemblymember McCarty and then Assemblymember Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've had a robust debate. And
It has been.
We have a motion and a second, so I won't go on forever, but just wanted to make a few comments. First, I want to be thankful for the senator and senators for bringing this issue over to the Assembly. I'm proud to be a co-author of this. I introduced a minimum wage bill on our side. We held back, waiting for your measure. I appreciate your leadership on this. As you said, income inequality is the issue of our generation. And with all the letters that we've gotten on both sides, I know the public is on our side, your side on this issue. Study after study, poll after poll shows that the public, a bipartisan level, wants to have our policymakers increase the minimum wage. I know you set a threshold of $13 to kind of gear up to. And, I've gone back and forth about this and whether or not that's the appropriate wage in the coastal areas versus inland or even the Central Valley. We're here in Sacramento. But I think, the point you make about the supplemental poverty index that's showing that the true cost of living is actually greater than the 13. And so the 13 in a couple years, certainly you can make the argument that really is a floor, and that other jurisdictions on the coast, maybe, who have a different economy, want to go higher than that. I understand that issue. I know that California has stepped up in 2013, but that's not enough. Too many people are left behind. They're being paid, I always said poverty wages, but I think you're correct. They're sub-poverty wages, and it's not just bad for everybody. It's bad for us because if people are paid poverty wages, that means we pay it on the back end. In social service costs, health care issues, food stamps, the works. Taxpayers subsidize this as well when people are paid sub-poverty wages. The notion of the carve-out for entities, I think, is really, really dangerous. Because where do you draw the line? I know we have people here from the Development to Serve DD community. In my budget subcommittee, we had after-school programs. So we haven't had a COLA. You remember this in the budget hearings. We haven't had a COLA for after-school programs for years, and we've had minimum wage increases, and it's impacted our. And so, I don't know where you'd start and where you'd stop, but more the bigger issue that if we had a carve-out, what would that say about California? That we're okay paying kind of our people in California poverty and sub-poverty wages, not just our employees, but heard earlier from child care workers. Those are not state employees, but kind of subcontractors of the state of California. We're already paying them poverty wages right now. I don't think that's right. And I have heard from our local restaurants. I appreciate the comments from Mr. Ross on behalf of the Restaurant Association. But one thing that I'm mindful of and try to focus on is that study on both sides of this issue. But if you look at what we know is in the last few years there have been some of these increases, and significant. I'm not sure the percentage-wise, but in Seattle, that's not our state, for example, but it's kind of West Coast. San Francisco and San Jose, we have had a significant increase, and I'm not sure if we've had restaurants there close down. I know I've talked to my colleagues on the city council, Mr. Chu and Ms. Campos from San Jose, and they said they haven't seen any of that. They said reports have came back the opposite. So I don't know if you can honestly say that it will have that detrimental effect. I know that you've said that every few years we've had this debate, the sky's falling. I remember the debates from the 90s on this issue. We went to the ballot, and I'm hopeful that the governor will sign a measure and will put this issue to rest. We won't have to come back every few years. So I'm hopeful that we have this, and it's an index. We'll move on to other issues, and I know there'll be other issues we'll have debates on as well. But I think this is the time, and I'm appreciative and I'm pleased to support this measure. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCarty. At this time, Mr. Lowe, and then Vice Chair Harper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. Obviously want to personally thank senators for bringing this forth today, because I think it is an important aspect. Continue to address this issue at hand, in particular the willingness to be forthright in saying, let's look for a counterproposal. This is a solution to try to tackle the problem that we have collectively in terms of poverty. My grandfather worked at Frank Fat's, and during that time he was able to save up enough, and he also worked at a place called Continental Can in this area, so he worked 2 jobs. But during that time he was able to save enough money to have 4 children, to put them through college. Subsequently, their children were able to also work and put their children through college. I live in Silicon Valley, San Jose. 2/3 of my district is San Jose. And according to the Association of Realtors, one needs to earn $178,000 to afford a single-family home in my community. And the California American dream is no longer attainable. And for the region like San Jose, Silicon Valley, the local jurisdiction passed the minimum wage. The people did, by over 70% approval. And that is sustainable in that particular community. And at the same time, when we talk about the issues at hand, I think it's important to look at the conversation, to address the conversations of regional approach. What makes sense in San Jose might not necessarily make sense in Central Valley or Imperial Valley. Having said that, we also have legislation before us and a determination on how to address these issues at hand. There was also discussion also about tipped wage earners and also about state-funded organizations, and I won't go into that, but I wanted to just dive into a portion that I wanted to flesh out with you here as well. I did have a conversation with the previous individuals who are members of this committee when this bill came before and did not go forth ahead, and so now we're having an opportunity to revisit this again. But if I might call your attention to a particular section and have a conversation about that too, given Asians, we sort of like to do our math. But to the section here on line 15, which refers to that of the CCPI, and the minimum wage adjustment, or maybe I could...
Oh, go ahead.
Wait till we follow. The minimum wage adjustment shall be made by multiplying the minimum wage in effect on December 31 of the previous year. Again, just on the previous year. So just focusing on that a little bit. And I just want to correct the economist here in terms of being factually correct. And when we talk about the disparity between, during a recession, what actually occurs down. And I did some homework here. From August 2008 to 2009, the CCPI went down by 1.13%. And in fact, during the Great Depression, it went down 10% in 1930. It went down 8.48% in 1931. It went down 10.60% in 1932, and negative 2.22% in 1933. So the statement that it would not have particular harm, I think, is factually incorrect. And I just want us to identify and focus on this particular issue, which is at hand this language here. Now, if I sort of follow the numbers about looking at the CCPI in terms of the values. So, for example, if the minimum wage was $13 in 2018 as provided by this bill, within 3 years of fluctuation, we could potentially have a higher minimum wage in a recession. And even when we go back to economic prosperity, the minimum wage is still significantly increased. In other words, it wouldn't have gone down, but yet it still stays higher during the recession. And I try to think long and hard about trying to address this issue at hand, how to get to this problem at hand, and I wanted to see what the senator's feedback might be on, instead of the language suggesting the previous year, rather than suggesting to the previous year that the minimum wage adjustment shall be made by multiplying the minimum wage effect of December 31, 2017. So from the date of 2017 rather than the previous year, such that the clarification will be the minimum wage will never go down, but in a recession, it also won't go up. Because I think there will be, when we heard testimony earlier about the importance of addressing this issue of poverty, I fundamentally agree. And I think we absolutely must tackle this issue at hand. At the same time, I think it is important to identify the potential consequences that this might have to associated businesses and the impact of the economy. And I want to be very sensitive to that. So I just want to, again, the distinction that I'm suggesting that we have a willing to see if you might be willing to take is rather than looking at the increase from the previous year, the language would then read such as starting from 2017, such that, again, the minimum wage will clarify that the minimum wage will never go down, but in a recession, during the downturn, it will also not go up.
So I don't believe that, as the bill is written, it is going to go up in a deep recession or any kind of recession, and it's very hard to talk about these hypothetical situations. But I would ask you if you think your constituents saw their rents go down when the economy crashed in 2008. I didn't see it happen in my district. I don't know about in your district. Landlords come to you and say, I'm going to reduce your rent. Your child care provider is going to reduce your child care costs. Your food might not be going up, but I don't think the cost of milk is going, leave milk out. Most commodities don't go down. And, isn't it fascinating? Another major cost driver is the cost of gasoline. It's now down to close to $50 per barrel. We're paying close to $3.50. Last time it was $50 a barrel. It was a lot lower. So it keeps going up, comes down a little bit, then it just always higher than where it was the last time we were at the cost of a barrel of oil. So I think I would agree with you that it should not be going up when costs are not going up, and that's why we adjusted to CPI.
Sure.
And if I may, Assembly Member, I would just say that during the last recession, again, I was working in the grocery industry, and with the exception of one chain, we saw every chain raise their prices during the recession to help offset fewer people who were shopping. So I don't think that we just don't see the cost of goods ever going down.
Sure. I might offer, again, to try to dive in deep, because this is a very important issue to the eighth largest economy in the world, and I just want to tackle back down to have this discussion, which is to say that with the current language, the minimum wage would still be increased during a recession, according to the language here, because it's based on the previous year.
So I do have to. What page are you on?
Sure. So in the bill itself, maybe on line 15. B2, yes. The minimum wage adjustment shall be made by multiplying the minimum wage effective December 31st of the previous year by percentage of rate of inflation incurred. That's the section that I was referring to. And so, an example.
I'm not quite sure. So your suggested change would be what?
The change, instead of saying the change is made to the previous year, that the minimum wage adjustment shall be made by multiplying the minimum wage in effect on December 2017 by the percentage rate of inflation occurred since 2017. So staying to the 2017 versus the previous year, because if the previous years fluctuate during the downturn, then the percentage increase could be significantly increased. And such, because the minimum wage would not decrease, you'll have a higher minimum wage during a recovery. So it's still, in other words, it would still maintain the minimum wage. But if we're a downturn economy, nothing happens. But it will continue to go up should the economy also go up. So in other words, the minimum wage will also increase as the economy does better, but it will not decrease during a recession and or any other point in time.
Okay, if I can intervene a little bit, I think we're starting to get into potential amendment language, and we haven't seen any amendment language here before us. I want to be respectful of all our colleagues. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. At this time, I want to call the vote. So we have a motion. We have a second. At this time, I'm going to call the vote. We have a motion. We have a second. Madam Secretary, call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have comments.
At this time, I'm calling the vote.
You're going to cut off people in the queue?
We're calling the vote. Madam Secretary, call the vote.
Totally inappropriate.
You're inappropriate and out of order. Madam Secretary, call the vote.
I think it's totally inappropriate.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Hernandez?
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Harper? Harper not voting. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Low?
Aye.
Low, aye. McCarty? McCarty, aye. Patterson? No. Patterson, no. Thurman? Thurman, aye.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman,
Thank
I think
you.
the cutoff on debate is completely embarrassing.
You're out of order.
Inappropriate.
You're out of order.
I think
You're out of
it's
order.
totally inappropriate.
Turn his
It
mic
just
off.
shows you how this is being ran through the state of
Thank you,
California.
Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, senators, for your patience and your good work. Thank you very much. We have a bill on call. You can't be yelling in this committee like that.
No, you cut me off.
Excuse. Sergeants, please remove the mic. Remove the mic. Please remove the mic. You're yelling. You're out of order. You've not been recognized. I'm sorry. Remove the mic. I'm running the meeting, not the sergeant.
It's muted outside.
Okay, we're lifting the call on the following bills. Senate Bill 588, De Leon. Madam Secretary, please call the roll of the missing members.
SB 588, Hernandez?
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Low?
Aye.
Low, aye. That bill is out.
Okay,
We have some add-ons.
and we have add-ons. Senate Bill.
So SB 3, Harper, is a not voting to no.
And that's SB?
SB 3.
SB3, okay, very good.
SB 548, absent member, Low?
Aye.
Low, aye. SB 730, absent member, Low?
Aye.
Low, aye.
All right, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.